Hey everybody, so welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I wanted to give y'all some tips and some ways that I studied while I was in dental assisting school. I was a lot more strict on myself during dental assisting school than I've ever been before. Even when I went to school when I was in the military, all my college experiences and all throughout school, this was the time, and I think it's because I was finally older and mature enough to take something extremely seriously. And I went all in and I spent a lot of time studying and a lot of different ways to try to memorize material. And I think that I came up with a lot of tips that helped me and could help you. So let's just get into the video of how I studied during my year-long dental assisting program. So first of all, I wanted to show you two of our textbooks. We also had a workbook that matched our main textbook, but I don't have that anymore because we pretty much did everything out of it and had to turn it in and stuff like that. And I also had a radiology textbook, but right here I have our infection control textbook, which I don't think we did that much in. We maybe did the first 5 chapters of this. I don't even honestly know why we had to get it. I feel like it was a waste of money considering we hardly did anything in it. But this textbook right here, which I've seen other schools use, and I know that some of y'all have said that y'all also use this textbook. This is the one that has the matching workbook, and it's pretty huge. It has I don't even know how many chapters, 60 or 70 chapters. But we literally lived out of this book. This book was my dental assisting Bible. This and the workbook is everything that I used to study and to prepare. So every day after school, whether I had to work or not, because we usually had at least 1 test a week, if not 2 or 3, I would spend 2 hours studying. So basically what I would do is I would set a timer on my phone, and if I felt like it was something that was extremely boring, I would break it down into increments. So if I was gonna be if it was a chapter that I really felt confident and comfortable with, I would maybe only study for an hour and a half. So I would set 30 minutes on my phone, and then I would just study as much as I possibly could in 30 minutes. And then after that 30 minutes is up, I would give myself 10 minutes to just do whatever I want. So if I wanted to get a snack, if I wanted to scroll through my phone, if I wanted to just get up and go outside, I would do that. And then 10 minutes later, I would come back and I would set another timer for 30 minutes, study as much as I could, and have another break. And that just went on however long I thought I needed to study for. But knowing that there's an end and not just mindlessly feeling it's never gonna end really extremely helped me. I'm gonna say my number 1 tip for studying for dental assisting program, especially if you have no prior knowledge, if you had no medical knowledge prior to taking this program, is to set a timer, because it's gonna seem really overwhelming and really frustrating. So literally just, you're okay, tonight I'm gonna study for an hour and a half. No matter what, I'm studying for an hour and a half, and I'm gonna give myself breaks. So I'm gonna, work really hard for 30 minutes, get through as much as I possibly can, and then just take a break and come back to it and set another timer. I am the type of person that likes to check things off a list, so that worked really well for me. Another tip that I have is if you actually bought your textbooks, I would highly suggest highlighting them. I know some people didn't own their own textbooks, but I bought mine, and literally I would highlight absolutely insane amounts in my textbook. I don't even know if this will show up. And sometimes it was more than that, but I would use different color highlighters for different things. So the first thing I would do when I know that we had a test or we had to read the chapters that the day before what we were gonna go over in class. So what I would do is the day before, I would read whatever chapter or chapters that we had to read, and I would go through and I would highlight just random stuff when I was reading that I thought was gonna be important. And then also in this textbook, they're called recall questions, and this was our homework also with the workbook. They're throughout every single chapter. We had to go through and highlight and answer all of these as well. So first of all, I would go through the chapter and I would read it. And then when I would go back to do the recall questions, I already knew a lot of the answers because I just read the chapter, or I at least knew where to find them. So I would go back and then I would find those answers and I would highlight them in a different color. If something I already highlighted was an answer to one of those questions, I would still go over it because this is gonna come and help me later. when I'm making Quizlets and stuff like that. So then also we had our workbook questions that went directly with the chapter. So those questions I would go back in and highlight. And if they were also the answer to one of the questions, I would like underline it. I was like, this is obviously important. If I read it and think it's important, if it's in this recall question and it's important, and if it's a workbook question, then it's important. So knowing something that was highlighted 3 times, I'm like, this is probably the most important information that I'm gonna need to know about this chapter and for this test. Because they always say, if your teacher's constantly repeating something, and also if it was something that my teacher constantly repeated, I would underline it. And sometimes our teachers would be like, straight up be like, this is gonna be on the test, like this is important, you need to know this. And I would underline it, and I'd be like, and star it, and I'd be like, this is what I need to really study. Because, you know, some of these chapters are 15 pages long, and like you can sit there and go through all 15 pages and try to memorize everything, but that's just not practical. So I feel like reading the chapter and then like going to the really like core material that you know your workbook is going over, your textbook, the questions are going over, that your teacher is going over. That's what you really need to focus on. But in the back of your mind, if you've actually read the chapter, and say on the test there's questions that like you didn't really go hardcore into, but you actually read the chapter, there's a pretty good chance that you could like recall information, because you'll be like, oh, I've heard this before, or like the other stuff will not even sound familiar, but you'll recall reading something and be able to answer it. For these textbooks, I would make so many Quizlets. Like me and my classmates had a dental squad, assisting whatever group on Quizlet, and we were obsessed with making Quizlets. So with this textbook as well, another thing that was important, each chapter has key terms. So this one had a lot of key terms. So basically we would type up the term and the definition. We would type up the term and the definition for each chapter. So one Quizlet was just like the key terms. That way we could go over them and kind of get a grasp on words that we may not understand yet. So a lot of these are like medical dental terms that I have never heard before, because I was a pharmacy tech. So a lot of the medical stuff I understood, but the dental stuff I didn't necessarily had ever heard before. So that just got us familiar with the terminology, which is really helpful when like you're reading a question and like you don't want to have words that you don't understand. So understanding the terminology can definitely help you answer a question. So we just had one Quizlet for that. We would also create a Quizlet for all the recall questions that are in each chapter. So we would go through and type up every single recall question and the answer and have a Quizlet for that. And then we would also have a separate Quizlet for like just for that chapter. So chapter 5, whatever. Everything that our teacher said was important, just like stuff that was reviewed over and over again and like knocked into our heads, we had a special one for that. So it was just like 3 ways to just constantly be like getting a review. So like the night before a test, I might skim through the chapter, just kind of like brush myself up on all the material for about 30 minutes, just try to be comfortable. Then I would just go to Quizlet for 2 hours, hour and a half to 2 hours before, you know, the night before the test, and I would just review. And then the morning of, I would wake up an hour earlier than I usually do, and then review. And I did this for pretty much almost every single test. And to me, it was just like, it was important to do well. Like I wanted hundreds, I wanted A's, I wanted, you know, to do the best that I possibly could. So I put in a lot of time and effort, and I took it really seriously. So in dental assisting, you're gonna have chapters like infection control, you're gonna do x-ray, you're also gonna have chapters on like dental specialties, so like endodontics, periodontics, pedodontist, just like prosthodontist, and then just regular dental dentistry. But you're also gonna learn about like front desk work. You're gonna have chapters on like, you know, like legal stuff, like just legal things. It was like legal and ethics of like the dental office and stuff like that. But then you also have stuff about like teaching patients hygiene and like how to take care of your patients and HIPAA, and like the spectrum is so broad for dental assisting, because like a lot of times you could end up doing front desk as well, and like being a like, you know, doing like the chair side part of it. So you have to know both ends, and you're going to be learning like software systems and stuff like that. So it's going to change probably how you study for certain tests. Like some stuff I was stronger in than other stuff. So sometimes spent less time studying and more time studying, but like that's all just going to depend on you, because in my class we were all very like strong in different things. Like more people were hands-on and more people were like book smart. I happen to be more book smart. So like the didactic, like textbook side, like I was able to memorize things very easily, but when it came to hands-on, I had to practice a lot more, and I was definitely a lot more stressed. But for me, when we got to the chair side part, like the lab side, which is like half the year, and then the other half, the first half of the year was didactic, I had to practice a lot more than a lot of other people. I was like so nervous about being like left behind in the process. Looking back now, like I was so stressed out for nothing. Like I've totally improved on taking impressions, totally improved on pouring models. Like just recently I had like a light bulb moment and my impressions have improved. Well, not my impressions, my models, like pouring them up and stuff have improved like a million. But like I said earlier, like if you can afford to buy your own textbooks instead of renting them, I would highly recommend it, just so you can take side notes, you can highlight, you can underline. I think that is a very good tool. I'm very visual at learning, so like if I'm highlighting and underlining, it tends to pop out in my brain more during a test. I can think of, okay, this is something I highlighted, and it just sticks out in my head. So if you can afford to do that, I would definitely recommend buying your own textbooks. Okay, so a tip when it comes to the chair side, lab side of dental, if you're studying, because you have to check off on competencies, at least that's how it is in the state of Florida, I would watch a lot of YouTube videos. So you're gonna get practice in class, but you know, it's kind of nice when you like go home and can just kind of like watch videos and see like slightly different techniques, because there might be something that you would prefer to do than the way that your teacher taught you, which if they're a good teacher, they'll understand that their way is not the highway, and that every assistant does every single thing different, and you're gonna take things from every assistant that you'll mesh into the way that works for you. So maybe watch some videos, try to find what works best for you. And then when it comes to practicing or doing your competency, just like do what works best for you. Like even if your teacher is like, no, that's not how I taught you. Like if you are doing everything like sanitary, infection control, by the book, like, and it comes out the right way, and then you do it your way and you're still doing it by infection control, and it's just slightly different than teachers, like if she is gonna get mad and it comes out perfect, like then that's stupid, because that's not how dental assisting is. And any dental assistant out in the field will tell you that every person does things their own way. Okay guys, so I hope this video was helpful. If you have any other questions about studying, or just like if you're about to start dental assisting school and you have any questions, you can leave them down below in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, just give it a like. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.